All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ted. I graduated from ESPM in 2016, which feels like a really long time ago. And I'm introducing my buddy Zac, who graduated in 2013. We were both in S&E. And a few things about Zac. Zac and I connected over beer, football, dogs, and cars. And it's a good combination, right? And then, actually Zac's in town, not for this talk. I mean, hate to surprise everybody, but there's a football game tomorrow. His alma mater is playing Cal. So that's why he's in town. So we're lucky. And you're not rooting for one team more than the other, right, Zac?
Oh, I'm rooting for all of
All right. Well, I'll be there too, so we'll see what happens. Zac then got funding from the NSF. Basically did, one of the fastest. You were just all business when you were here. You just stormed through this program, and we met being GSIs for Carolyn Finney, and the rest was history. It's kind of a story of how amazing the friends you make during this time here can be. And what's special about Zac, I mean, there's more than I could say. He started a couple nonprofits. He's going to talk a lot about those. He started a educational program called the Cooperative News School. He's special also because he takes what he learned and he really tries to bring it to his communities and really put them into action. And I think that's really wonderful thing about him. So that's all I'll say. I'll welcome Zac down here. So put your hands together.
As Ted said, I'm Zac Hyden. I'm the executive director of the Automotive Free Clinic. I have a PhD from Berkeley in 2013, and I have 3 automotive service excellence certifications. Yeah, I mean, it's really good to be back. I think that the 4.5 or 5 years that I spent here were some of the best years of my life. I'm a redneck auto mechanic from Alabama, and I was able to meet people from all over the world who are doing all kinds of amazing things. People studying terrorism in Bangladesh, people studying social agrarian reform movements in Indonesia. And it just expanded my mind and allowed me to see a different view of what is possible. And when you grow up in a place like Alabama and your experiences are mostly in Alabama, you kind of have a narrow view of what's possible. And that's some of the things that we struggle with our people, is not being able to see what's actually possible. A little bit about myself. Like I said, born in Alabama in 1978. I just turned 45. I was born to a traveling salesman and Church of Christ preacher and a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a really brutal parent who terrorized me throughout my childhood. And if you know anything about the Church of Christ, it's a very rigid, dogmatic, almost cult-like fundamentalist church that's becoming actually more popular in the South. More and more of our legislators in the South are no longer Methodists and Presbyterians, and they're becoming more and more Church of Christ. So that shows you at least where our elected politics are going. When I was 6, I was tested for IQ and I scored off the charts. And from then on out, my childhood ended. I was put on this success track, and my dad and mother kind of thought that this was like a meal ticket, right? My intelligence was it was like a meal ticket, and if they disciplined me enough, that I would be able to make them rich. When I was 16 years old, I was still going to church in the Church of Christ, and I asked to be accepted as a member of Memorial Parkway Church of Christ in Huntsville. And I was like, I had to have a meeting with the elders of the church, and I thought it'd be all like high fives. Yeah, high fives, dude, join the church. It wasn't that. They grilled me for 2 hours about my supposed heretical views and made it clear that I was not welcome in the church. So I lost faith. I lost faith in my family, in the church, in the success track. I gave up a scholarship to go to David Lipscomb University, which is a Church of Christ university in Nashville, and I decided to become an auto mechanic. And I did that for about 7 years, and during that 7 years, I was as wild as you can imagine any lost 17-year-old man could be. So I did that for 7 years, and then 9/11 happened, and I had an interesting reaction to 9/11. The South is very patriotic, and in our communities, many people were like, well, let's go bomb the shit out of them. And really, my reaction was, this wasn't one person. This was 19, 20 people. The logistics and the planning and the strategy and the tactics. I wondered why a group of people would do that, so I decided to go to college. And I went to Auburn University, which is my dad's alma mater. I mostly chose it for football. Clearly. It wasn't the academic prowess of Auburn University that made me choose it. It was mostly chosen for football, but I did really well. I did really well at Auburn. I worked with a man named Connor Bailey, who was in rural sociology, and we did some research together on private property in the context of swine confined animal feed operations. And we asked the question, were people's cultural understandings of private property changing because of conflicts over 10,000 head hog farm? And that research was released in 2009 in Southern Rural Sociology. So 2008, I decided to come to Berkeley to study with Carolyn Finney. I had been reading Marx, and it became abundantly clear to me that race was a barrier to working class solidarity in Alabama. I think that's maybe not the most insightful. It's pretty obvious. And I really wanted to learn more about race and white supremacy, so I came and studied with Carolyn Finney here at Berkeley. And in 2009, I had a nervous breakdown. And I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which later became upgraded. I got an upgrade to schizoaffective disorder. And this goes back to the trauma of having a parent who terrorized me. I spent the next 8 months recuperating in Birmingham, Alabama. And during that time, I volunteered at a community garden called West End Community Garden. And I decided to do my dissertation research on urban development in Birmingham, Alabama, which is my hometown. In 2010, some of the people I had been working with and I decided to create an organization to promote alternative forms of urban development in Birmingham called Magic City Agriculture Project. And we wanted to put aquaponics cooperative in every disadvantaged neighborhoods in Birmingham. And we totally failed. We didn't get one single aquaponic cooperative in any single neighborhood anywhere in Birmingham. Totally failed. In 2015, we had written a strategic plan for this urban development, and a young politician named Randall Woodfin reached out to us and told us he wanted to support our plan and that he was planning on running for mayor in 2017. And my initial reaction to that was, hell no, I'm not getting involved in electoral politics. And Randall continued to court me for the next 2 years, and in 2017, he endorsed a document called the Black Agenda, which was half our urban development plans with cooperatives and aquaponics, and half Black Lives Matter's policing plans. And we won. We won. And Randall Woodfin, yeah, we won. And Randall Woodfin got in office, and he immediately betrayed us, and I was done. I had had enough. I was devastated, I was crushed and burnt out, and I had had enough. My wife got a job in Montgomery, Alabama. We moved out of Birmingham into Montgomery, and I went back to work in a shop. And for everything, I promise you, I never intended to get back into organizing and activism. Never intended to. In 2020, the pandemic hit. And I sort of looked at myself, and I looked at the people and institutions that had invested in me over the years, including Berkeley, including Auburn, including people like Connor Bailey and Louise Fortman and Carolyn Penny, and probably hundreds of others. And I felt like that the pandemic was going to change everything, and probably not for the better, and that we had to do something. So I got together with some of my comrades, some of my old comrades from working in Birmingham, and we created Magic City Agriculture Project. I mean, not Magic City, the Automotive Free Clinic. The Automotive Free Clinic is a free and low-cost automotive repair shop. And it started out as a mobile shop. It moved to a 3-bay shop in Prattville, and it's now a 7-bay shop in Prattville, Prattville is a small rural town outside of Montgomery. And in 3.5 years, we've repaired over 500 cars. We've given away 6 cars. We've hosted a panel at the World Social Forum, and we've received over 1,000 individual donations, and we're almost entirely funded by individual donations. We've gotten 2 or 3 grants, and that's it. So we started that, and as a part of that, we also started a reading group, which the purpose of the reading group really was for people in our community to be able to come together while they were isolated and discuss their lives. But we had like a little background context to that reading group, that we were reading books in those groups, and we were reading Marx and David Graeber and Frantz Fanon and others as a part of that reading group. And also, we had started before we started the Automotive Free Clinic, we were doing another reading group called Redneck Studies, where people like me could come together and talk about our experiences. It's a popular education and cultural organizing program for rednecks, and I define redneck as a working class Southerner. And we came together to sort of talk about our experiences, our music, our culture, and try to figure out a positive version of who we are. And this all sort of mashed together with the twice-a-week reading groups, and we came out with an article called Internal Orientalism of the American South. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So I'm going to butcher Said. I'm not a theorist. I haven't been in academia for years and years and years and years and years. So if y'all want to just kill me later about my wrong interpretation of Edward Said, please do. But the way I understand Said is he said there was an Occident and an Orient, and that the Occident created the Orient as an immoral, backwards place to make the Occident seem virtuous. Well, the American South and the American North are in the same relationship. The American South is constructed as backwards, immoral, violent, racist, so on and so forth, as a way to make the American North seem virtuous. Why do we need to do that? Because the American South has all the natural resources. And we don't own those natural resources. In Alabama, timber is the most profitable industry in the state. 70% of all of the land in Alabama is in timber, and 62% of that land is absentee owned. The wealthiest man in the state of Alabama is Jimmy Rain, and he is a timber bearer. We don't own the wealth in our communities, and we are stuck in an orientalizing discourses that says that we deserve it. And I can give you evidence, other evidence, as to why this internal Orientalism discourse exists. Deliverance, the film, is in the Library of Congress as historically, aesthetically, and culturally significant. It's American canon. And rednecks in that film are portrayed as either intellectually disabled, violent rapists, or simple. So this discourse definitely exists, and it definitely does justify us not owning the wealth in our communities. It also helps connect us better to the global South. I think the American South is more like the global South than it is like the rest of the country. I told you a minute ago that we had a panel at the World Social Forum. That panel was called the Deep South Roundtable, and we brought activists from all over the global South and the American South together to talk about our experiences. And what we found is that our experiences were very similar. This sort of connection leads to different types of solutions for the American South. Most of the solutions in the American South are liberal reform. Get Democrats elected. That's what foundations want. That's what nonprofits want. That's what everybody wants for the South. Georgia went blue. Get everybody else to go blue. It's not going to work in Alabama. It's not going to work. What about land reform and reparations? A global South solution. Land reform for the working class of the American South and reparations for Black and Indigenous people. And the objective of what I'm about to talk about, the institutional part of this talk, is to create an institution that can carry the political program of land reform and reparations to the political forefront in the American South. And we are at the beginning of creating such an institution, what we call a decentralized, autonomous, networked institution, in the sense that there's 7 organizations in our network. No organization can tell any other organization how to solve their problems in their place, right? My organization is Prattville. I understand Prattville. I'm going to solve the problems of Prattville using Prattville's tools. Organizations in Birmingham, which is a different context, solve the problems using Birmingham's tools. And there are 7 different organizations in 7 different geographic areas. And the network serves the purpose of coordination, resource sharing, and communication. And here's the 7 organizations. The Automotive Free Clinic, which I've already talked about, I won't talk about more, but that's in Prattville, Alabama, which is about right here. And Sand Mountain Cooperative Education Center is just what it says. It does cooperative development in Sand Mountain, which is in the Gunnersville area, which is in about right here, the southeast, the southwest corner of the Appalachian Mountains and the northeast part of Alabama. The habitual bee is an urban apiary and farm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Which Charlotte is right here. Free State Mutual Aid is a community garden and free store in Parent, which is about right here. Free State Mutual Aid is a harm reduction organization, so they hand out clean needles and sanitary kits. And that's in West Virginia, which is here. Across Alabama, Center for Rural Organizing and Systemic Solution does disaster relief. And they're currently working in Camp Hill, which is about right here. And Revitalize Birmingham Group does real estate education. Again, we're talking about land, and it's right here. And I want to say that this network is highly diverse. We have Black women leaders, we have Black male leaders, we have trans leaders, we have queer leaders, we have every type of diversity that you can imagine. But we also have a type of diversity that most people don't have, and that's ideological diversity. Revitalize Birmingham Group is led by Black nationalists. Across is straight up progressivism. Jubilee House is a vague rural anarcho-communism. Free State Mutual Aid, again, a form of anarchism. The Habitual Bee, the Black radical tradition. Sand Mountain Cooperative Education Center, progressivism, and the Automotive Free Clinic is an ideology that we're coming up with, a new one called Redneck Liberation Theology. So we got the thing about that I see in activism so much is that in order for people to have relationships with each other, they somehow have to agree on everything politically and ideologically. And that creates for toxic situations within activist groups because it becomes a competition over who can be the most pure. We're not doing that. Our relationships are based on personal friendships, based on trust, based on the idea that we don't need to discipline anybody else in the network, and that we trust each other to make the right decisions for their communities. So finally, this is our kind of definition of institutions. Provides good services or both, which all of those organizations do. And people in institution have a broadly shared understanding of the purpose of the institution. And again, this is theory, and if y'all want to kill me on it, like, fine, go ahead, you can kill me later. I think we have a broad understanding of the purpose of our network institution, which is to change the South. I don't think we're all on the same page as of yet about land reform and reparations, because I think that's pretty controversial. And the characteristic too is have power to influence organizations, individuals, and other institutions. We probably need more resources before we can really claim to have that kind of power. So, I said I lost faith. My dad died of suicide shortly after the pandemic hit. And I had the worst schizoaffective episode that I've ever had in my entire life. And it almost killed me. And a funny thing happened when I was going through that is I started reading my Bible again, And my pastor, I had been going to a church with my wife called First Christian Church of Montgomery, which teaches liberation theology. And my pastor told me to read the Gospel of Luke. Read the Gospel of Luke. So I did. I read the Gospel of Luke. And in the Gospel of Luke, all Jesus does is rail against the rich and the powerful. The whole Gospel, that's all he does. He rails against the rich and the powerful. And I want to say, got a little lost. And my take on liberation theology, on redneck liberation theology, is that it's about values and ethics. And if you look at the institutions of global society, you can only say one thing about them from my perspective, and that it is that they are sinful. There are 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. I think the institutions of global society embody the 7 deadly sins. The opposite of the 7 deadly sins is the 7 heavenly virtues: prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude, faith, hope, and love. Imagine how the world would change if the institutions of global society, or the institutions that we build ourselves, embodied the 7 heavenly virtues. I guarantee you they would change. And here's why. Because the people I deal with on a daily basis are tired of dealing with the institutions they cannot trust. Amen. And if you want to support our efforts, this is the network. It will be divided 7 different ways, and this is to the Automotive Free Clinic itself. Are there any questions? A little bit different, huh? Go ahead.
Thank you for all the work, Zach, and also just like positioning yourself and your own journey within the intellectual message and analysis that you provided. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to just ask, I am civil and I was also fact-based in Zach back in the day, but coming back to you for a long time. So glad you're here. I'm curious about what it's like to try this network building and organizing work that you're doing, enabling stronger decision and ideology. And like, I hear the relationships are strong. I'm curious if that's the part that enables the coexistence. So what's that like to be in that space with your colleagues and making space for difference like that?
I think it's about what your time horizon is. I'm not looking at being successful in my lifetime. And I think when you have that time horizon, you're not expecting to have an immediate payoff to a relationship. And it takes away that transactional nature of many of our relationships. It's just about walking together as we try to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to, because we're in bad shape. Like, we're in bad shape. You know, the institutions in this country and across the globe are not prepared for climate change, are not prepared to deal with poverty, are not prepared to deal with difference, are not prepared to deal with anything. And I think having a more than the next quarterly profits view of what we need to do lends itself to longer term relationships and people who can say, we're problem solving today for something that we may never even see the fruits in. I think the opposite of that is we got to solve it right now. And if you don't believe like I do, we can't be in a relationship together, you know? I don't know, that's kind of my take on it. Go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for your talk. My name is Patrick. Grad student here at University, also a security for I will be in the magnetic workers. And I think, I really enjoy my participation in this meeting, but I think one of the things that really limits people's view of this is like, I think the goal of professionalizing union organizing and activism. I think that in many ways limits potential for this organization to, instead of being like a kind of autonomous collection of workers, people see it more as like a political party. So I'm curious, what your experience has been kind of pushing people outside of their maybe political or ideological zones and allowing them to see kind of potential and acting on that.
I think it's extremely difficult. Yeah, I think we live in a society in which fundamentalist Christian tactics of like conversion have become central to the political process. Because again, it's this immediate, we need to win this election in 2024. This is the most important election of our lives. Yeah, we've heard that before. And it's all about this like immediate type of, we gotta win now, win now, win now, win now, win now, win now. And it's not looking at like what the long-term solutions to our problems are. And as far as professionalization goes, I mean, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it go too professional and I've seen it go not professional enough. So I think there's like a happy medium in there where, you know, people are still disciplined and working hard, but at the same time, they're not just chasing their own career. And I think when you get people in activism who are just chasing their own careers and their fame, it becomes super freaking toxic. And I try to avoid those people like deeply. Like I have made it known, I do not want to be in community with you. And that I do not want you to come in around our people because our people are not going to understand what you're talking about. Right? They're not going to understand why you're talking to them the way you're talking to them. So yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I love this. Very exciting. And I have two questions, I guess. One is about the network. So there's no name yet for
The network's called Iran.
Iran. Thank
It's
you.
called, I didn't say that. So it's called Educational and Economic Resource Organizing Network.
Okay, thank you. My question is how, I get the sense that it happens very organically, but how do people enter Iran? And how do people maybe not enter Iran? Like what's
Yeah,
the process?
what's the
of forming
boundaries?
the network?
What's the boundaries?
Yeah,
I think people self-select because in some respects, I'm not popular. I'm not a very popular person in Alabama because I call people out and I tell them like, this is unethical and you're acting like an idiot and that sort of stuff. And there's not a lot of people that really want to work with me. So it sort of self-selects out. The people who do want to work with me were thick as thieves, right? Like, and if people want that kind of relationship, and I can see that they want that kind of relationship, then I'll invite them into the network. And anybody can invite anybody into the network. We have a voting process between the leaders of the network. We just basically say, I'm going to invite this person into the network, this organization into the network. If anybody wants to put up a red flag about it, please do it now. And we give them a couple of days. Nobody puts up a red flag about it. We invite them into the network. So it's not like a real sophisticated type voting process. It's real simple. Nobody has to invest a whole crap ton of time into it. It's just like, this is a group that I think will be good for the network. And if you don't, tell us no and we can discuss it, and we've never had anybody say that. So, I don't know if that's a testament to the type of people that we're attracting, or if it's just that most people don't want to really work with you.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So, I think your name is Mad Redneck.
Yeah,
I'm really interested in the MAD. Is there a MAD liberation politics or a disability liberation politics or in that network or in the work and how's it showing up?
yeah, I'm mad, clearly. I try to tell people that, I don't know, I don't really understand that, the way that politics is supposed to go, but I just try to be an example of what a mad person can be and help people to see that you can have a fulfilled, happy life and you can do the things that you want to do. Like, okay, this is all I can do, this is it, this is all I can do, I can't really make money, I can't really, like, there's a lot of things that I'm not good at. I recently had to take a month off because my team told me, you have to take a month off, because I was so, my mind was so paranoid and so destructive that it was hurting the team, and my team was like, supported me. I wouldn't be here without my wife. My wife's right there. I have the most supportive community. I have the most supportive church. I have great doctors. And I mean, I don't know if that's mad politics, but I mean, it takes a village for somebody with the condition that I have to be able to do the things that I've been able to do. It's everybody. Any more questions?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear you talk maybe a little bit more about the idea of purity you just spoke about. I think that's
The idea of what?
purity.
Purity.
Yeah, you spoke a little bit about like holding space for ideological diversity. Sort of the way that like the left polices one another kind of on the grounds of purity, and the idea that there's like a set of acceptable beliefs. And I think I'm curious how you like hold space for that diversity of beliefs and kind of also having to draw a line between like religion and people who like don't think trans people should exist, right?
Sure.
So like how do you kind of like resist that purity idea, even while still using some of the same language, like theology and kind of the intellectual traditions that purity stems from?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is that we focus on getting the job done. We focus on practical problems. If you got a single wide trailer in Camp Hill that doesn't have a roof on it, ideological concerns are sort of out the window. And we're focused on getting the money there to be able to get that trailer moved and fixed. We're focused on the logistics of what it takes to get people there and trucks there and that sort of stuff. I mean, I spend my days fixing cars. There's no ideological alternators. And I think a lot of this ideological wrangling is, first of all, internet driven. I think it's very much internet driven because I don't think it relates to what's going on the ground. And I think it hurts the efforts of people on the ground because all that internet driven noise get into foundations and get into the way that a lot of the more powerful institutions in activism organize themselves because they think, oh, there's a huge fascist threat. Is there a fascist threat? Yeah, but I've met one fascist in my entire life in the real world. And she was a undergraduate student from Italy at UAB. It wasn't some, good old boy out in the sticks with a, white power tattoo. I've never met that guy. I've never met that guy. I'm not saying that guy doesn't exist, but I've never met him. And I think that it's so in the abstract, all of this ideological wrangling is so in the abstract that it doesn't relate to being able to serve the community on the ground, and in fact gets in the way of being able to serve.
Kind of related question to that, that I can't figure out how to put succinctly, I'll just explain it. I really appreciated the way you shared so much, like, both personally and about your work. I had a very different upbringing, and I grew up in Massachusetts, but still a lot of what you said resonated and is like impacting me physically. And thank you for that, for coming here and sharing. And I'm a first year in ESPM in the PhD program, and I was doing a lot of organizing work before coming here. And like, I believe so much in education and access to education, and I know that being here, is like an enormous privilege. And I also feel like every bone in my body like disagrees with so much of this place. And working in some of the movements I was in before, like I heard a lot of like Black middle class, working class people say like there's no place for theory here. We don't have time for that. I have interest in that. The people who made that are so different from me. There's no use for that here. And I would love to hear how you bring what you learned here to the work you do on the ground, and how you see a place for that there. Right now, I kind of feel like I'm here like hesitantly.
Sure. So I would say, the first thing I would say, if you need, and I'm not directing this to you by any stretch of the imagination. If you need 100 pages to describe a concept, you don't understand the concept. Okay? Any concept should be able to be broken down into 1 or 2 sentences that anybody can understand. If you cannot break a concept down to 1 or 2 sentences that anybody can understand, then either, again, you don't understand the concept, or that concept is shit. So I can explain internal Orient to the people in my community because it resonates with their experience. They know that people hate the South. They're not stupid. They've heard what people say all the time. They know who owns the land. They know Alabama Power owns 10,000, 100,000 acres behind their house. I'm not telling them anything they don't already know, just giving them a little bit of clarity into how to think about it. So really, the people already know the theory. People already know the theory. You just got to give them a little bit of clarity to help them think about it more clearly. They already know it. They already know what's going on. All these people, all these communities, they all already know what's going on in their communities. Everybody knows what's going on in their community. And I mean, that was some of the stuff that happened when we had activists from all over the global South and the American South sit down and talk to each other. They started talking to each other like, well, we got these miners in our communities, and oh, I live in such and such Alabama. We got miners in our community too. So I think to me, I think you got to go from the people's knowledge first, right? Like Paulo Freire type stuff, right? Like real Paulo Freire type stuff, not the popular education of the nonprofit industrial complex. I'm talking about the real fucking popular education that builds people up and lifts people up and has them see what's happening to them in their own terms, right? So, I think we have to respect the knowledge of the people on the ground first, and then build our theories off of what the people on the ground are saying. And then that theory becomes a useful tool to the people on the ground. And look, I didn't come up with this theory. David Jansen wrote American South is an eternal Orient, David Jameson wrote this, he's a Swede. So, I mean, you know, it's just, yeah. That help?
You've got a question in the chat. Want me to
Okay.
read it?
Yeah.
Okay, I love seeing you returning to your home state and working with others in the South to improve your home. I'm from Alaska and the brain drain from the state and villages is a continuous talking point. I think this is a major challenge in the global South as well. Of people who could be powerful leaders, leave their home rather than stick around and push for that change. I was wondering if there's something similar in the South, and if so, how y'all are approaching that in Iran.
As far as keeping people in the South, keeping brain drain.
Yeah,
Well, I will say, yes, we need more people to stay in the South and struggle with us, but we also need more money to pay more people to stay in the South to struggle with us. When you got, you know, infinite resources here and nothing in the South, it's kind of hard to get people to stay. I will say that my wife and I will brag on us. My wife has a degree from Vanderbilt in anthropology, and she wanted to go into international development, and she said, why should I go into international development when I can work right here in my hometown? And I feel the same way, and I think that's why we're such a good team. But yeah, I mean, it's about resources. If we could get more resources into something like Iran, we could keep more people, and we got good people, but I make $700 a month. Warren Tidwell, who runs across, he's making nothing right now. The people doing Sand Mountain concerned citizens are making nothing. I mean, Sand Mountain Cooperative Education Center are making nothing. Like, it's gonna be hard to maintain this and maintain the people here without a bigger commitment of resources from, you know, institutions that have it, because the institutions in the South are not gonna fund us. The media will not cover us, and the institutions in the South will not fund us. So it'll take more resources.
Can I go on a limb and ask you a question? I'm really sitting here confronting my response to one thing you said, when you said basically that you've never met the white supremacist guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that really challenges me to think about my distorted narratives of the South. But part of me wants to ask you, really? And if you haven't met that guy, how have you met white supremacism in the South, and how does your network deal with that?
Yeah, I met one time. I was at a bluegrass concert, and a guy who is a member of the League of the South showed up selling tickets to a raffle for a guitar. That is the only time that I can ever remember meeting an actual white supremacist. How do we deal with white supremacy? I think we are, by building this network, by doing something practical with Black, brown, different types of people working together to build something together. My problem with the current narrative about white supremacy is that it's all about tearing shit down. And that's fine, there's a place for that. But we need to be building the replacement institutions for white supremacist institutions. It's one thing to tear down white supremacist institutions, which needs to be done. But we need to be building the alternative institutions that aren't white supremacists from the beginning. And as an example, for, hey, you can come into this institution, you can participate in it, it's not white supremacist from the beginning. Now, am I saying that our institution is perfect? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We got people with weird ideas and weird politics, and I got my own weird politics. But we're building something together that could be multiracial working class democracy, which is what the goal is, right? Multiracial working class democracy is what the goal is. So we're building something that could grow into that. As far as the destructive side of the tearing down institutions that are white supremacists, I have no interest in doing that. I've done it before. I believe it did more harm than good. My personal opinion. I've destroyed institutions in Birmingham. When I was working in Birmingham, I've destroyed 2, to be exact, because I thought they were white supremacists. And I think that I think there's blowback that cost you in the long run. And that's just my take on it. And I don't disrespect people who do the destructive work, and I understand that it needs to be done. I just don't.
Time's up, so. Thank you, Zach.